Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Mark Gabberti, and this is the podcast for entrepreneurs who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. One really easy habit that we can develop is meditation. And meditation is something that has a really big impact on our mindset. It allows us to de-stress. It allows us to be more in sync. But at the same time, some people struggle to find those 5 to 10 minutes to do daily meditation. Other people see it as something where you got to do 30 minutes a day. So some people see the benefits of meditation, but they don't really find the time to do it. So if you're wondering how to succeed in meditation without really trying, this episode's for you. Today's guest has been active in the meditation space since 1998, first as a practitioner, then as an apprentice to his Vedic meditation teacher, and finally as a teacher himself. He now travels the world giving talks on happiness, mindfulness, inspiration, and meditation. He writes books and articles on meditation and happiness. He led sold-out meditation trainings and retreats and produces The Shine, a global pop-up inspirational variety show with a mission to inspire. He also sends out daily inspirational emails each morning called the Daily Dose of Inspiration. Today's guest for episode 146 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Light Watkins. Light, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Mark. I'm happy to be here.
Light, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show, and meditation is something that I feel like a lot of people, they either do very religiously, it's something that people overlook, or it's something that like it would be good if I could do, but I don't have the time. So we're going to explore all of that in this episode, but I'd love to get some backstory first. So what first attracted you to meditation?
I had a friend who he was spending a lot of time with when I moved to Los Angeles about 16 years ago. And he was my meditation friend. And I say that because I didn't have any other friends who were meditating with any kind of consistency. But every time we hung out, he would always ask me the dreaded question, have you meditated yet? And I say dreaded because I didn't enjoy meditating at that time. I'd been practicing and dabbling for a few years because I knew that it would be a good thing to incorporate into my life, but I never really felt like I was having any sort of tangible experiences in meditation. So when he would ask me, I would reluctantly, tell him, no, I haven't meditated yet. And he'd always say, okay, well, let's sit down and meditate first. And this is before we were, we'd go out to a movie, go to dinner, go for a run, just whatever we were doing, he would always suggest meditating. And I would peek over at him from time to time and notice that he looked like he was having some sort of experience that I wasn't having. And then about 2 months to 3 months later, because he was a relatively new friend of mine, a few months later, he said, hey, my meditation teacher is coming to town, to Los Angeles. You should go and meet him and hear what he has to say about meditation. And I didn't know he had a meditation teacher. He never brought it up before. And it really struck me as something that was just different and unique, because I didn't even know meditation teachers were a thing. And come to find out, his teacher was a transcendental meditation teacher, and I didn't know anything about transcendental meditation. But this guy had been teaching meditation for 20, 25, 30 years, and all around the world, and had taught thousands of people to meditate. And so he was very, very adept at teaching regular people meditation. And he at that point was teaching independently of the TM organization. And I went and met him, and he was literally the happiest person I'd ever met in my entire life. And I figured I'd met some pretty happy people in my days, but his level of happiness was just in a different stratosphere. And I knew within a few minutes of meeting him that I wanted what he had, and I figured that the best first step would be just to learn the approach to meditation that he taught. And as soon as I learned that meditation, literally within minutes, I was having a completely different experience in my personal meditation practice. And I realized that I'd been working way too hard to meditate. I'd been berating myself and resisting my thoughts and just doing all the things backwards that I was used to doing in my sort of dabbling approach of meditation. So it changed everything for me, and that's how I went from a reluctant meditator to a meditation enthusiast, literally overnight.
And I feel like one of the reasons, like you struck on this, like you felt that meditation was something that would have helped. It was something that you felt like would have been good for you. But I feel like people have that similar thought, but then that idea of time creeps in. And I know that like 5 to 10 minutes really does not seem like a lot of time to find in a given day, but it's amazing how like schedules seem to cloud up and get filled with a lot of different responsibilities that for many people make that 5 to 10 minutes harder to find. So how do you suggest that we find a time to meditate and then act upon it so that we're actually meditating?
You know, I would say that the most important thing is learning how to meditate in a way that feels right to you. And if you have that experience, you'll happily make the time to meditate. I mean, my problem now is I don't have enough time. Like I want to keep meditating all the time, and I have other things that I need to do. So it's not a question of if I have the time to meditate. It's a question of how can I meditate all day long because it feels amazing. And it's like anything else. We all have things that we do that may not be the most effective use of our time, but we do them because we enjoy them. And for some of us, it may be social media, scrolling through social media, reading articles about just interesting things. For others of us, it may be exercising. Some of us, it may be watching television or sports. You don't have to say, how am I going to make time to watch the game this Sunday? If you're a sports fanatic, the question is, how am I going to get my bills paid and chores done because I love sports so much? I don't know if I could tear myself away from the television. And I think we need to get meditation out of the chore category and into the I get to category where we actually look forward to the practice. And that was my experience. In the beginning 3 years, I had to try to figure out how am I going to squeeze in 5 minutes here or 10 minutes there so I can sit down and struggle to meditate. But once I learned properly how to meditate in a way that felt enjoyable, then it was the opposite. How am I going to get all this other stuff done around my meditation practice? And I think if it's not there, meditation is always going to be something you struggle with. It's always going to be something you reluctantly do. And you're probably not going to have enough discipline to do it often enough to get any kind of real tangible benefit from the practice. And that's the thing with meditation. It needs to be a consistent daily practice in order to have those legendary benefits that we read about in all the studies and the magazine articles, the brain changing and lengthening the telomeres and all these kinds of wonderful things. If you're not doing it on a daily basis, you're not going to have those benefits. Just like if you don't work out on a regular basis, you're not going to get stronger, because the sedentary life, from not working out is the underappreciated variable in starting a new training regimen. People don't realize your body is already conditioned to not working out. So that means if you work out once a week, it's still going to revert back to the sedentary physiology. If you work out 4 times a week, then over time, it'll start habituating towards that newer, stronger physiology. But it takes consistency, and in order for the body to habituate towards a new type of physical and chemical structure, meditation is no different. It takes consistency. 5 or 10 minutes is not enough time in meditation to affect any kind of real change in the physical and mental body. You really want to do 15 to 20 minutes of a daily practice, and maybe even twice daily practice, in order to have those kinds of benefits that you read about and hear about.
And this brings up the idea of the compound effect, where if you put in a little more time consistently towards one activity, in this case meditation, and you continue to do that day in and day out, you are going to see the exponential growth, but it's gonna happen. You'll see some gradual growth and then bam, exponential. So if you do put in that extra time, it definitely helps. And when I think of
That's right.
meditation,
Oh, I was just going to say, you're absolutely right. I think the weekend warrior effect doesn't apply to meditation, where you work out on the weekends, but not
yeah.
during the week. It's better to meditate for 15 minutes a day than it is to do it for 2 hours on a Saturday. And that's all you do for meditation is you just do it once a week for an hour or two. You just spread that out over each day. And the hardest thing about starting it is really making the time. Even if you know what you're doing, you still have to fit this new thing into your routine. And that just requires planning like anything else. If you're going to start a new diet regimen or something like that, you're going to have to make some time to do food prep. And otherwise, it's not going to stick. It doesn't matter how great it is for you. You're still going to struggle. You need to get rid of, the stuff that's going to be pulling you back towards your old ways, just like you do with the diet stuff. So, if canceling your cable subscription is what you need to do, or deleting your social media apps off your phone, so every time you want to check Instagram, you'd have to re-upload it and enter in your access code and all of that, then that will reduce the temptation of wasting time doing other things, and it will increase the likelihood that you will start to fit in whatever the new habit is into your routine.
And with a new habit like meditation, I mean, it obviously takes some time to develop, and for some people do work differently from others. So I'm wondering, like, 15 minutes. I feel like that's a magic number we should strive towards. Obviously, like, there are some people who meditate for much longer than that in a given day, but I feel like 15 minutes a day isn't too much to ask for. But what are your thoughts on just doing one meditation session for 15 minutes versus doing 3 throughout the day that are 5 minutes each?
I would say 15 is the minimum. You don't want to go lower than 15 minutes. So no matter how many you're doing in a day, you want to at least do 15 minutes.
Okay. And my other thought on meditation is, do you always do the meditation where you're crisscrossed and sitting down, or do you ever do it like standing? Like, what's the posture for it?
I'm glad you brought that up because, to say I meditate really could mean anything. It could mean that you're walking through nature, could mean that you're swimming, could mean that you are sitting down crisscrossed, as you said. And that's because meditation itself is a very generic term for any sort of activity that allows someone to lose sense of the past and the future and to just feel like they're engaged in a present moment or flow state. And when I'm writing about and speaking about meditation, I'm mainly referring to it as a seated, eyes closed practice. And it's not to say that the other activities are not meditation. They are absolutely meditative, but they don't elicit the same sorts of results that we now know to be consistent with a seated, eyes closed practice. So I would say that those go in the meditative category. But if you're walking through nature, you're not going to have the same brainwave signature, heart rate signature, blood pressure, oxygen consumption that you would have if you were seated with your eyes closed in the meditation. So I'm not saying this as an opinion of mine. I'm saying this as a medical and biological fact that your seated, eyes closed posture is going to elicit a completely different state of consciousness than the one you would be in if you were riding on your road bike or whatever you're calling your meditation practice. And as far as sitting down with your eyes closed, it's also been shown scientifically that you don't need to cross your leg. Crossing your legs is not going to enhance the experience, nor is sitting with your back straight. Those are big misconceptions. You can actually sit comfortably. You can have your back supported. You do want to have your eyes closed. You don't have to have your fingers together. You don't have to have your legs in lotus position in order for the meditation to work. And this is this is actually amazing news for most people, because most people can't sit in lotus position comfortably enough in order to get lost in the experience of meditation. And so what ends up happening is they sit in a position that they think is what it's supposed to look like, even though physically it feels like they're going to snap any moment because it's so uncomfortable. And that's all they end up thinking about for the entire period of time, is that, I'm sitting here meditating and it's not comfortable. How long is it going to last? When is it going to be over? I don't know how much longer I can do this. I knew I wasn't that good at meditation. They set up having these thoughts, and I'm speaking from my own direct experience, but also from the experience of those first initial 2 or 3 years teaching new people as a yoga teacher how to meditate. People would, I'd be in the front of the room sitting with my legs crossed like I saw other teachers do. And I'd tell my students to do the same thing and make sure their back was straight, make sure your chin was parallel. All these things I had no justification for. I just would see other people who did them. And what people didn't know is that as a yoga teacher, I never had any proper meditation instruction. No one ever taught me how to meditate, nor did they teach me how to teach meditation. But people looked at me, my students looked at me as an expert meditator because I taught vinyasa yoga. And that's a big issue that's happening now, is that people look at yoga teachers who may have done, a 200-hour training in yoga postures, asana postures, and they look at them as a meditation expert. And that's not what's happening. These guys aren't getting any more meditation experience than medical doctors are getting nutritional experience in medical school. The average medical doctor gets 7 hours of nutritional experience in all 4 years of medical school. So if you go to your doctor to get nutritional advice, they don't know any more than you know a lot of the time. What they do know is how to sew on an arm and how to, write a prescription for the flu, but they can't tell you what the best diet is for you to eat for your age, your life stage, your geography, and all the other variables that go into your health. And, with meditation, when I trained to become a meditation teacher, I trained for 4 years, and I went back and forth to India and, did all these, I did thousands of hours of intensives. And so, compared to what I knew as a yoga teacher to what I know now, it's not even close. And I just kind of cringe at the idea that a lot of these yoga teachers are out there either knowingly or unknowingly positioning themselves as meditation experts. And I think that's where you get all of the confusion that we're now seeing in the practice, where if you ask, 50 different yoga teachers, how do you meditate? You're going to get 50 different answers, because they don't really know themselves. All they know is what they've seen their yoga teachers do. And they're basically parroting those instructions without having any real knowledge or justification of why people should sit with their back straight or why they should bring their fingers together. And I'm talking about in real world justifications, not some kind of airy-fairy, because your chakras are going to be in line. How do you measure that? Where's the study that talks about chakras being in line? Where's the study that talks about energy moving through your fingertips? Where's the study that talks about you being more grounded when your palms are facing down and having more reception when your palms are facing up? And the thing is, those things are hard to study, but that's not the most important concern when we're meditating, as far as health and wellness and rebalancing the mind and body. And there are way more efficient ways to do those things than sitting with your back straight and with your palms facing up.
And with meditation, I mean, it's great that you cleared up the posture, because I feel like some people may think they have to have like a very specific structure for meditation, like a very specific way of sitting. So it's good that we have that cleared up. But so we meditate for 15 minutes, some of us maybe more if we have extra time. It's over, we open our eyes, either the day continues, or if you meditate at night, the day ends, you wake up, you start a new day. How do we build on the bliss that we got from that meditation session and then continue to build it?
It's just consistency. It's very simple. It's just you just have to be consistent. It's if you want to think of it in very practical terms, I would say put it in the same category as sleep. Right? Sleep should never be a problem unless you're not getting it. If you start skipping sleep or having bad sleep, then you start talking about how sleepy you are all the time. But if you're getting quality sleep, you never have to even mention sleep. No one who gets quality sleep goes around going, man, I've been sleeping so well, because you're only sleeping well compared to poor quality sleep. So if you're out there saying, I'm sleeping much better, it means you haven't been sleeping very well. But for people who are getting proper sleep, you never even talk about it, you know? And which means you don't think about it. All you think about are all the wonderful ideas and the creativity and the insights and the generosity and compassion and the happiness that you experience as a result of getting proper sleep, because you're generally healthier when you're sleeping better. Most people in our society are not sleeping very well at all, and that's one of the reasons why we suffer from so many diseases and ailments. Most of them are lifestyle diseases, and most of those lifestyle diseases stem from lack of rest. And what meditation does very effectively is it allows the body to wake up the intelligence that can elicit the quality of sleep that we need in order to function, not just normally, not just to survive, but to thrive, to function optimally, to unlock all of the different long-term survival functions, get them back online, create a domino effect of health so that our digestive system gets better, our reproduction system gets better, the immune system gets better, everything gets better. There is no one area that is necessarily the standout, in terms of health, because everything gets affected when the body is resting at a deeper level. And so when the first thing that people usually report when they learn how to meditate with me or when they read a book, the Bliss More book, is that they're sleeping much better at night. And I love hearing that, because it's a strong indication that there's going to be a good thing. There are going to be positive ripples in every other aspect of their health going forward, as so long as they continue their consistent practice.
I can see how meditation would improve sleep, because it puts you in a very powerful mindset where the bliss is flowing. And I know that my brother does a lot of meditation before he goes to bed. So I see that just as a way of clearing your mind and getting the clutter out. And one of the things that I'm wondering, and this is a question that I love asking people, is like meditation is something that if we do it a lot, we tap into our bliss. I feel like it's easier for us to accomplish the big goals that we have in front of us. But in addition to a lack of meditation, because I feel like that could hurt our ability to accomplish goals, what do you believe holds most people back from reaching their full potential?
In life in general?
Yes.
Stress. They get themselves into a position where they're accumulating stress on such a rapid level that their bodies start to become compromised. And that means that the body is not sleeping like it should. It's not digesting as it should. It's not reproducing as it should. And it creates the kinds of problems that doctors don't have the answers for. And so when a doctor doesn't have an answer for a problem, the doctor doesn't have a solution. The only solution is to put you on medication. And of course, the medication has its own set of side effects, which creates more problems. So then you have to take medication for the medication. And so that gets you into kind of zombie mode, because usually when you're on medication, you're not your full self, and which means you can't really operate at the level that you want to operate at. So you start having to compromise and justify. And you extrapolate that, and it's easy to get into just get by mode, where you just end up doing just enough to get to the next moment. And that's no way that anybody really wants to live. I think we all want to feel that real sense of liberation and freedom, and it starts really in your mind and in your body. It starts in your health. See, people mistake it by thinking it's about making more money, and that's a really big problem in our society. And by the way, I'm not anti-money. I'm not a communist. I'm not I'm not a socialist. I'm all about making money and being abundant and giving from the overflow and all those wonderful things. But you don't want to sacrifice your mind, your mental and physical health in some kind of endless pursuit to make as much money as possible or to emulate the behaviors of the richest people, because there's no correlation between being wealthy and being happy. And what I would like to see is more people who are striving to be happy and doing the things that science tells us that will make us happier, will increase our baseline level of happiness, which is primarily our inner practices like meditation, like yoga, like prayer, expressions of gratitude, surrounding ourselves with more loving people. What if we hustled and grinded our way to happiness instead of hustling and grinding our way to making more money? And then my suspicion is that when you become happier, then it changes your whole internal algorithm and you start making choices that support your happiness instead of choices that you feel are going to bring you happiness later on down the line, which again is not the case. And we can just look at anyone. The people who've accumulated the most things are not necessarily the happiest people out there. There's no correlation. The correlation between happiness is the people who are doing the inner work, people who are being of service, people who are taking care of their minds and their bodies above all else so that they can be more available to other people in their family and their community. And I think that meditation is a key habit in that regard because it allows you to do all the other things that we need to do in order to increase our baseline level of happiness. It's much easier to be grateful when you're happy already inside. It's much harder to be grateful when you're miserable inside. So being miserable and wealthy is not going to put you in a position to be more grateful. If you're happy inside, then you can be wealthy or you can be, materially poor. It doesn't really matter because your inner state is such that you're going to continue attracting a more abundant outlook on life and on yourself.
And it's you bring up a very interesting thought where we think about I feel like a lot of people are definitely they're thinking about like they want to make more money, they want to boost their revenue, but you also have to think about boosting your happiness because, as Light mentioned, there comes a point like very soon where money doesn't boost your happiness. Like I think I saw a study where it's up to $70,000 a year has some effect.
Yeah, $75,000 is the threshold, and then your happiness starts to be it's diminishing returns after that.
Yeah. Because I feel like as you make more money, it's let's say you make 200,000, it's an incredible number, but then you get used to it. It's something that material things lose their effect on us, lose that happiness factor as we're more used to them. While building on happiness through meditation, just for the sake of building happiness and going straight to the source, will allow for that long-lasting happiness.
When people say meditation makes you happy, again, that's a very sort of nebulous concept. What does that really mean? Well, how does it make you happy? Where does the happiness come from? Where did the happiness go in the first place? And when you understand the biomechanics of meditation, what it's doing very effectively is it's allowing your body to produce more of the chemicals that the body needs in order to feel the emotion of happiness. The reason why more people are depressed in our society than ever before is because those people who are self-described depressed people are not experiencing the chemical that is necessary for happiness, which is mainly serotonin and dopamine. So they have to take medication that will mimic those chemicals exogenously because their body has stopped producing the chemical endogenously. And what meditation does so wonderfully is it not only causes your nervous system to produce the hormone of serotonin, but it activates the receptors in your brain so that they can then receive that hormone so that even if you were experiencing the hormone before, but you didn't have the receptors for it, which caused the depression. Now that's no longer happening. That's no longer being inhibited. And you start feeling happier for no reason. And that's what it is. It's a chemical response. It's not about how much money you have. It's not about who's in your life. It's about do you have the physiological capability to be happy? And if you don't, you can have it all and you would still be miserable. And so, when we understand that the biochemical nature of the mind and body, then it makes things very clear about what needs to happen and what's not necessary in regards to happiness. And if there's an intervention that we can do, like meditation, that has been shown scientifically to increase the chemicals that the body depends upon to produce that emotion of happiness, then you would think everybody would be doing it. Like it'd be something you wouldn't have to sell it to people. It would sell itself. Everyone would be doing it, but that's not what's happening yet. It's getting there, but we're not there yet. And so it's still very early days when it comes to appreciating the power of meditation as much as people already appreciate the power of, say, showering, right? Everybody appreciates what a shower can do for you, because if you don't shower, you stink. And if you stink, people don't want to be around you as much as you want them to be around you. And so, but what we don't realize is that stress also makes you stink energetically. And we just think we've almost kind of normalized it to the degree that we make excuses for it, but it doesn't have to be that way. And it's still affecting us. When you are energetically off, you're not going to have the same opportunities that you want to have from either employers or potential partners, life partners, because nobody wants to be around a stress head. It doesn't make anybody feel great. And the stressed out person is usually the needier person in the relationship or at the office. And it ends up, you end up getting in your own way more often than not. So meditation can liberate some of that stuff. And that's what makes you feel free again. And when you're free, you're way more attractive than when you're needy and stressed out. It's not the way that you're going to attract the opportunities that you want. And that's why people who do meditate, they appear to be more abundant than people who don't. And it's because they're happier. They're not as needy. And so they end up drawing more desirable opportunities into their life because of their state of being.
And meditation definitely gives you that sense of abundance, that liberation, and the stress that is associated with not meditating, and just seems like all these challenges are getting thrown at you can really have a toll. And I do feel like challenges come again and again. The way we respond to them plays a big impact in how those challenges affect us. But Light, I'm wondering if you could share with us one big challenge you faced in your journey and a powerful lesson you learned during that challenge.
I would say that probably one of the biggest challenges was just learning how to find my own voice and how to listen to my intuition. And, I had a series of experiences in the last decade in my 30s where I ignored that voice, trying to chase opportunities for making more money or chase opportunities for love. And you end up getting burned. There was a couple of situations. I lost my shirt in a business deal. I got caught up in a Ponzi scheme. All these kind of things where I was kind of, listening to the wrong voice. I was listening to the voice of greed. I was listening to the voice of jealousy, and I was meditating at the time, and that's the thing is a lot of times people think when I start meditating, all my problems should get solved. And if not, it means the meditation isn't working. But it's a very gradual integration into life because we don't realize, again, how hardwired we are to think mentally about certain topics or certain aspects of life, such as love, such as business, such as this concept that money doesn't buy happiness. Those are very, very deeply ingrained indoctrinations that we've all grown up with. where we've seen 1,000 movies, we've heard 1,000 love songs. Everything is telling us that that happiness is on the yonder side of falling in love, or happiness is on the yonder side of becoming rich, striking it rich. And even though we may intellectually agree that, that's not the case, that's not how we usually behave. And even as a meditator, I was finding myself getting trapped in these kind of cycles of greed and jealousy and envy and trying to, achieve things in order to get fulfilled. And slowly and incrementally, you start to hear that, what they call the still small voice inside, kind of guiding you towards whatever your truest passion and purpose is for that time in your life. And you ignore it, in the beginning because it just seems so foolish. It seems naive. It seems like it's impossible to do some of these things, or it's scary and it makes you uncomfortable. And it's much easier to go to what we know well, even if it's not necessarily inspiring us. But if we know it well, then we'll just kind of default to doing the comfortable thing because that's what we know. And that's where we feel like we have the most control. And so slowly but surely, that still small voice turns into a loud, annoying voice. And what I mean by that is it reaches the pitch and a volume where you just can't ignore it anymore. And that's where you start to see that the real magic of living life is in moving in the directions that make you uncomfortable, that give you a sense of uncertainty, because the level of uncertainty is really just a superficial aspect that challenges you to grow and to expand spiritually. And it's through spiritual growth that you find a sense of comfort. So the comfort is never in the surface level experience. It's in the spiritual lesson that you go through, and you see that, oh, I actually do have courage. I have enough courage, or I do have enough security within to confront those different dark or shadow sides of life. And once you go through that a few times and you come out on the other end and you see that you're still okay, and actually there were some stop gaps in there where you felt a sense of safety, you felt like there were people there who had your back, or you felt like there were things that you learned that are going to end up benefiting you in pretty profound ways later in life. You see that you're never quite alone as we sometimes feel, and you're always experiencing a level of protection, spiritual protection, provided that you are listening to your heart. You're listening to that voice inside, the voice of intuition. So it just takes a lot of time to clarify which is the voice of intuition, which is the voice of the ego. But once you get to that point, you don't question it anymore, and you start to notice that you always kind of end up in a better place than you ever imagined for yourself. But the journey to get there was very uncomfortable and had a lot of uncertainty around it. And it just doesn't bother you as much the more you take those leaps.
Breakthrough Success listeners, I will say this is a different conversation, different type of interview from what normally comes on. I mean, there is like personal development in there also, but there's a lot of deep insights within this interview. I encourage you to listen to it again. Like, we're not done yet, but I do encourage you to listen to this one again, because there's a lot of like deep insights on like how to live and how to make sure that you are in a life of bliss. And I do want to promote Light's book, Bliss More, How to Succeed in Meditation Without Really Trying. That's on Amazon. So like, if you really enjoyed this conversation, that book's going to give you an even deeper, it's going to go deeper into Light's mindset and his approaches to meditation and having that level of bliss. But in promoting your book, Light, I'm wondering if you could share with us 3 books that you believe would have a positive impact on us.
Sure. The Alchemyst will be number 1. Great fictional story. Everybody usually has heard of it. Of a kid who finds his passion, who finds his personal purpose, in life, and he deals with a lot of uncertainty along the way. I would say Conversations with God is a great question and answer book for answering the biggest, what I consider to be the biggest questions of life. You know, what is life about? Where do we come from? And who's God? And, you know, all of those kinds of really high level questions. And I would say as a third book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. You know, we can be as spiritual as we want to be, but we still have to deal with humans, and just understanding human behavior in that very intimate way, I think can go a long way in terms of getting allies and supporters for your cause, and helping to get people to help you, because we all need help. The more effective you're going to be on this planet, the more help you're going to need, and the more inspiring you're going to need to be. And if you're self-absorbed or narcissistic or a sociopath or something like that, if you have those tendencies, then you're going to have to refine those so that you can get the kind of help that you're going to need without people working against your efforts. And I think How to Win Friends is just an amazing book for that purpose.
All right, Breakthrough Success listeners, those links to the books that Light was gracious to mention, those will be in the show notes at marketberry.com/E146. And before we wrap up this episode, I'm going to flip the tables a little bit. So, Light, I've asked you several questions throughout our time together, but what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
I think the question, am I doing enough? You know, there's a guy named David Goggins he's a former Navy SEAL, and he's got this concept called the 40% rule, which means that when you think you've gotten to your limit, you're really only 40% there. And if you push yourself, you can probably do more than double of what you've already done. And I'm not suggesting this is a way to live, you know, every moment of life, but I think when it comes to tackling the things that we need to do in order to fully be available to ourselves, such as making time to meditate, or, you know, working with our diet, or, you know, things like that, exercising, we tend to, as a society, give up a lot quicker than we should. Even when fighting for justice or standing up for causes, you know, there's a lot of slacktivism that happens in our society, where we give it a decent effort one time, and then if we don't experience all this dramatic change after that decent effort, we tend to give up. And with meditation, it's the same thing. If people who haven't meditated for 3 decades start meditating and they don't experience some big change after, you know, 4 days, then they give up. And I think we need to have the understanding that change is incremental. It's a very slow, glacial-like process, and consistency is always what's required when it comes to enacting the level of change that we want to see. And we need to do more. We just need to stay in it a little bit longer, or a lot longer, and make following through the new measure of success. Instead of looking at it in terms of the outcome, how much I'm going to get at the end of the road, make the journey the destination, the journey of just staying the road, staying the course, you know, keep using as much creativity as we need to find ways to follow through on what we say that we're here to do. And it's through all that creativity that we're going to uncover the best parts of not only life in general, but of our life. And then at the end of our life, when we look back and we tell the stories, the stories we're going to tell are not the things that we planned. It's the stuff that we didn't plan that everybody's going to want to hear about. And that's the magic. That's the great stuff. And I think that only happens when we push ourselves beyond our comfort zone.
Light, thank you for giving us that insightful question, and for sharing all of your great nuggets of wisdom throughout our time together. And if you guys want to keep in tabs with Light and see some of his work, I can't recommend enough his book, Bliss More, How to Succeed in Meditation Without Really Trying. That book is on Amazon. It will also be in the show notes as well. Light, I cannot thank you enough for being a guest on the show. Thank you for sharing your insights with us today.
You're welcome, man. Thanks for having me. It was a wonderful conversation.
How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn more and get access to this free resource, visit markberty.com.